Welcome to Gotta Run. This is Will Sanchez. Thank you for tuning in. I have a very, very special guest today. Her name is Gordon Bakoulis. He is the editorial director for New York Roadrunners. Gordon is an 8-time recipient as the New York Roadrunner Runner of the Year. And in 2010, he was selected as the Runner of the Decade. Her credentials are too numerous for me to cover, but I am thrilled to have Gordon as a guest.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be here. I love the show.
Listen, we need to congratulate you. I mentioned you're with Roadrunners.
Yes.
You just celebrated, or recently celebrated, your 15th anniversary with Roadrunners.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about that.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I started, I go way back with New York Roadrunners, with the club, as they say. And I came on staff in September of 2002. But prior to that, I'd done some freelance work. Been a member of New York Roadrunners since 1985 and run a lot of races and know a lot of people, knew a lot of people who worked there. So it was a real natural progression. I had 2 young kids at the time, 2 little babies, really, and had been freelancing, but doing more and more and more freelancing with New York Roadrunners until it was more or less a part-time, full-time job. And so it was a very easy and natural transition to joining the staff back then.
So I guess Fred LeBeau must have recruited you at that time.
Oh, no, Fred had passed away. He passed away in 1994.
My gosh.
I knew Fred quite well.
It only seemed that long ago.
94,
It's
yeah,
amazing.
It was actually October 9th, so it was just a couple of days ago, the anniversary of his passing. But I knew Fred when I was running at my best level. Fred had, obviously shaped the club in so many ways, and his legacy really endures and, still shapes.
Do you start with print? I guess you're now digital?
I did. I was brought in to work on the magazine. We had a magazine, New York Runner, back then, and it was 6 times a year, then 4 times a year, gradually kind of winded down as digital technology took over and came to the fore. So most of the work I do today is in the digital realm, on the website, a little bit with social media. But we still do print. We do a print media guide for most of our major events. We do a print program for the TCS New York City Marathon and a print results book, as a souvenir for the runners.
Item collectors.
Yeah,
people really want that.
They do, especially for people for whom, and there are many of them, the TCS New York City Marathon is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. They want a print piece, even though they also, interact with us digitally.
There's something
on the
about
website.
seeing your name in print.
I guess there is.
It is.
I guess there
right.
is. I love my job. I really get up every day and I'm excited to go to work. The organization has changed tremendously in so many really, really wonderful ways. Our staff is really robust. We have more than 200 people on staff now, and back when I started, it was maybe 35 to 40 people. So that's really different. We have a wonderful run center on West 57th Street that's really just our community running center that allows us to interact with so many people. And I work with children and communities.
With Team for Kids, Run for the Future Kids.
I wish I could be more involved. I wish my day job allowed me to spend more time, and I do it as much as I can. The Race Buddy program is with Run for the Future, which is a program for rising high school senior girls. And it's a mentoring and it's a coaching program. It teaches them how to run. We recruit girls and girls apply who have not run, on a team or really in some cases run at all.
A few months ago, I was invited by Roadrunners to come in and to a show with Coach Lamar about that program.
Yeah.
Isan Smith did a beautiful job, and we met 5 of the high schoolers. They told their story. And
they're great.
And we got video of them doing the run with, I think, Flanagan?
Shalane Flanagan, at the Percy Sutton Harlem 5K. So that's the culmination of the program. They train for 7 weeks, and in addition to running, to practicing for the 5K, they learn nutrition and shopping and leadership skills. And all the girls who complete the program and run the 5K receive a $2,000 college scholarship.
That is so beautiful.
And they just gain a lot of confidence, and they bring a lot to us as well. I feel like when I'm being a race buddy, I'm getting as much as I'm giving, because their perspective is just really fresh.
Before we turn our attention full-time on you, as you know, I had Alan Rubin here as a guest over a year ago. Alan's your husband, and he told us, that he had this, I don't know, it's a mini stroke, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a stroke.
How's he doing now?
Oh, he's doing very well, thank you. He really, from time to time, we talk about, well, how do you feel? Would you feel, sort of before and after? A little bit of numbness still, a little bit of balance issues sometimes at the start of a race. He's always raced very smart in that he doesn't go out too fast, doesn't blast off the starting line. But now even more than before, he really can't go out fast because of the balance issues. So he just, kind of hangs back, makes sure he doesn't get tangled up with anyone, and runs smarter than ever as a result. He's gearing up for his 30th New York City Marathon on November 5th.
Well, he hasn't missed one,
he
even though he had that
right.
mini
No,
stroke.
even the year of the stroke. He had the stroke in March of 2015, and he did run the TCS New York City Marathon that year.
Oh my gosh!
What happened? Unfortunately, he recovered and was able to get back into daily running really within a few weeks. But then because of the numbness in his extremities, in his hands and feet, he didn't realize that he had plantar fasciitis.
Oh,
So he
yes.
was training through an injury, which is something he would never do. Because he's,
Right.
so balanced and smart about that. He doesn't try to pretend he doesn't have an injury. And just had to come hobbling in from like a 16-mile training run and went to the podiatrist and had this injury diagnosed. So really couldn't run at all from like the end of August to the end of October, a week before the race. Did like one 10-mile training run and then went out and ran the race because the injury was gone by that point. So
for the New York City Marathon.
For the marathon. So ran
wow.
4:28. This is a man with a PR of 2:29.
We're going to talk about you now. So let's introduce you to our audience, Gordon. Tell us where you were born and tell us something about your growing up years.
Oh, my growing up years. I was born in Princeton, New Jersey in 1961 and I didn't really realize what an amazing, magical childhood I had at the time. Princeton was and is a very intellectual community, a very artistic community, a very community of amazing athletes. The university just brings so much. So my childhood was kind of idyllic, and it was, there was a lot more space back then, and kids weren't as closely supervised. So I just ran around all the time. It was very safe. It was very comfortable. And we played a lot of running games, capture the flag, kick the can, and just sort of like a game called Chase, where we would, divide up into teams and chase each other around the neighborhood for hours on end. So sort of without realizing it, I was, very aerobically fit. At the same time, I had absolutely no athletic ability, athletic skill. I had the endurance, which I guess is genetic. My father rode crew, and his father apparently was a runner as well. So, and my mother was very athletic as well. So I had that, but could not, hit a baseball. I did all those things, but with no skill whatsoever. Baseball or softball, I guess at the time, kickball. Anything, football. I loved all those things.
But you had fun doing all those things.
Had fun.
Which was what counts.
Didn't care that I wasn't any good at them.
So it sounds like, did you go to Princeton College? Where did you go to
No, I didn't. I went
college?
to University of Virginia, and they had a really, really good women's cross country and track team. So I didn't want to be that serious with it. I had run a little bit in high school on the team, but not only 1 year. I mostly played lacrosse and soccer and field hockey. So didn't go out for track or cross country. So in college, I just ran for fitness and fun and camaraderie. And,
cool.
So it was cool. Yeah, it was great.
What was your major?
History. Love history.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I love history.
You and
20th
George
century.
Hirsch, history majors.
Yes.
I've had many history
Amazing.
majors here.
Okay, good.
The last one I had, his forte was the Civil War.
Yeah, interesting. I just listened to a podcast about U.S. Grant this morning, about a new book that Ron Chernow, who wrote the Hamilton biography that became Hamilton, has written a biography of Grant.
Well, you think there's going to be a musical in a few years called Grant?
No, that's so funny. They asked him that, and he laughed and he said, I can't see it. He sort of compared, the
You probably didn't see Hamilton either, but there you go.
Hamilton was, they were both controversial. Everyone, I guess, is
In those
controversial.
days, they were controversial.
But yeah, they just said, Hamilton, the young, dashing, provocative, this, that, and the other thing, and Grant, sort of the taciturn, alcoholic, really much maligned, called the butcher, He said, I can't see it. But
We'll see in a few years.
In a few years, exactly.
Okay. And so after college, you probably wanted to decide a career for yourself.
Yes.
What process did you go through for that?
I was pretty clear I wanted to be a journalist. So I moved to New York. I'd gone to University of Virginia and spent some time there in the summers and loved it, but New York was where my heart was, and that was where the magazine industry was, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work for women's magazines. So I worked at Ms. and Glamour and Working Woman, so all these great magazines,
Ms.
many of which...
Was Gloria Steinem?
Yeah, she was actually. So I still have
I
a
think
book
she
that
founded Ms., right?
Yes, she did, and I still have a copy of her book, Outrageous Acts and Everyday Rebellions, that she signed, so I will treasure that. Yeah, she's one of my heroines. And then ended up at Running Times magazine, which was based in Boston at the time. So I was commuting back and forth when my oldest son was just a tiny baby, and that was really hard. So then they moved to Connecticut, and I continued to do the commute, the daily commute, which was
Running Times as an editor. So
yeah, I was the editor.
So you were
there.
running more during that time?
During that time when my kids were babies, I was not running as much.
Okay.
I never stopped, but I kind of retired a few times from competition and then would sneak back out and do a race or two and, felt like I still had the bug a little bit.
Okay.
I did run the Olympic trials in 2000 when I was just 5 months postpartum, I'd given birth to my son in the fall of 99.
That's amazing.
That's one of the things that on paper doesn't look like much, but it's one of the things that I'm most proud of, that I took part in that.
Isn't that the year also you were finalist for the 10K?
No, that was 92.
92?
Yeah,
oh,
92 was one of my best years in terms of lifetime PRs, but in terms of overcoming life challenges and just kind of making it all come together when it didn't seem like it was going to.
So you had
the
your
year
baby.
2000.
So you already met Alan Rubin. I asked Alan, how you guys met, and he was a little, didn't really.
We can't remember.
he played his cards close to his chest. So I told him, well, I'm going to ask Gordon.
Yes.
So is there a story how you guys met?
Well, there's a story, and it's not very interesting. We ran at almost exactly the same pace in races, although he would run much smarter. As I mentioned before, he would always go out slow and then come tearing past me in the final mile.
Approaching the finish line, the 41-year-old Rubin had put the field away. He had plenty of energy left as he finished in 33:55. There was little doubt about who would win the couples race. Alan Rubin's wife held more than a minute lead for the women. Gordon Bakoulis would not be caught from behind. We talked to the winning couple.
Because I'd come off the marathon, I started very comfortably, see how I felt and everything, and then I gradually moved up and moved into the lead, and yeah, I feel like it's Christmas suddenly, It
felt good, especially the last couple of miles. People were telling me that Alan was winning, and I just cracked up. That really helped me relax, to think about him winning the race.
So we would chat at the finish line. It was very low key. I had been married before, and just was not looking at all, and sometimes that's the best time to meet someone and fall in love, because you're very just relaxed.
Right.
And he was very low key as well, and that's just his personality. And it grew from a friendship into a romance very, very gradually. And he, I guess when I visited him, he's from England, and I visited him at the holidays in 1994, Christmas 94, New Year's 95, and realized that I was in love with him, and it was wonderful. So from there we were, just definitely.
Well, how did he propose?
He didn't propose. I did.
You did? How did you propose?
We were on the plane on the way back from the trials in 1996.
The Olympic trials.
The Olympic trials, the marathon trials.
That's for your trials. So he was there to help support.
Right. That was in February of 96. And I said, well, now that we kind of both proposed. I just turned to him, I said, now that this is over, what do you think? And he sort of finished the sentence, and so that was that. And then we got married that fall.
That's a good story.
Well, it just was typical of our relationship. Very.
Nowadays, people plan it. Oh, I'm going to get propose and
Oh,
kneel
yeah.
down in front of Fred LeBeau.
Most people do, and that's great. It's a
It is
beautiful
great.
moment in your life, and you should make the most of
But
it.
yours was spontaneous. You went in the flight.
Very much so. It was on my part anyway. And I think on
that's-
his part as well.
I think it's
But-
very romantic and beautiful.
Thank you.
And-
No,
and
it was,
obviously it's-
and
it's
here we
worked
are,
out
21
because-
years later. So
Here you are.
We're still together.
Okay.
3 children.
All
and,
right. So here you are as an editor of Running Times, and that magazine,
Doesn't exist.
was
anymore,
very well
unfortunately.
respected.
Yes, it
And I
was.
think-
I loved it.
I think it had some really great writers. Didn't Roger Robinson have a column on
Yes,
it?
he did. Yeah,
Like
Roger had a column for
something,
years.
Footsteps,
Yeah.
and he fondly remembers his editors
Yeah.
and those magazines.
Yeah, I left Running Times in 2000, and Jonathan Beverly took over, and he was the editor until 2016 when it went.
It didn't go
Belly
digital,
up.
it just closed.
It had a big digital component. I mean, all magazines do now. But it was bought by Rodale, which publishes Runner's World,
Yes.
in 2006, and they published it for 10 years, and then pulled the plug in. I
Yeah.
believe it was 2016. It might have been the end of 2015. I'm
Yeah,
not remembering.
yes, it's a different era with
Very
social
much so.
media.
Yeah, everything's different now. It's just different, and everyone, you have to change, or figure out something else to do with your life.
Right. Well, you mentioned you've been with Roadrunners for 15 years. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, after Running Times, when did you? You started as a freelancer.
Yeah, it was funny. It was very organic. I left Running Times in 2000, and really it was the commute that was, what I wasn't able to make work in my life, because with my 2 young children, I wanted to spend as much time with them as I could. And every time I got stuck in a traffic jam on the Merritt, I'd be like, okay, something's not working. This is just not working. And
Yeah.
I would try working from home, but I find as a manager, because I was, the editor-in-chief, it's really hard to manage people at a distance. It just didn't work for me. I'm a real team builder and team player. The technology wasn't quite as good then, it was like video conferencing and all that
Right.
was really sort of in its infancy. And I just like face-to-face. And so I made the decision, and it was the right one. I freelanced, just did a lot of writing, and gravitated to New York Roadrunners. I was brought in to do some media guides and some
Right.
research and writing, and then, eventually edit the magazine. And I guess in 2001, that was the year I really, became almost full-time without being on staff.
Yeah.
After the 9/11 terrorist attacks, there was so much work generated by that. I mean, it was obviously a tragedy. That was the
Yeah.
least of anyone's concerns, was how much work it was going to create. But it did. We had to re-communicate everything about the race that wasn't clear initially whether the race was going to happen, and then when it was, how were we going to position it? The whole this will uplift the
gosh.
city and everything. We had to do a whole completely different communications
Right.
approach,
Right,
and
right.
with a very small staff. So I just plunged into that and ran the race that year, and just that was the time when I really realized that this was where I wanted to be professionally, and that I had a passion for this. It just brought together so many components, so many aspects of my life: the running, the communications,
Right,
the
right.
Community building. It really was just so
And then
natural.
you had Sandy. I guess it was a little bit of deja vu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Is
was
the race going to happen? Not happen? And at the last minute, that
Yeah.
must have thrown everybody a curve. And your
Yeah.
communications, oh my
It was very
gosh.
challenging, for the whole city and, region. It just was so unclear what was happening, and it was unfortunate the timing of everything. But
made your
in the end,
job,
it would have been impossible to put the race on.
I
The
know.
resources weren't there. It wasn't fair to the city, but all that was becoming clear over a period
Yeah,
of time,
yeah.
and
then you had to
very
figure out,
unfortunate.
how to put a program together so runners can, do future runs.
What a team effort that
Well,
was!
I know.
It
you
was
guys came up
amazing.
with several ways of doing it. I don't think, was the refunds offered? I think
Yes.
it was, but you had a choice of running 1 or 3 marathons
Exactly.
or 1 or
Good
2
memory.
halves.
Yeah.
I mean,
You could get a refund, or
but
you
everybody
could
was really
run
concerned
in
about that.
2013, 2014, or 2015.
And now that's, of course, behind you.
Yeah, but we learned as an organization, grew, and hopefully nothing like that will ever happen again. But you have to, as you know, prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, let's go back to 2010. What I mentioned in the beginning, I was shocked to read that there was something called the runner of the decade.
The runner of the decade,
I go,
yes.
Whoa! So
yeah,
no.
it was a surprise, a complete surprise to me because it hadn't existed previously, and I think we'll do it again in 2020.
Of course, why not?
So we'll gear up for that. Yeah, it was just honoring the achievements, my achievements from 2000 through 2009.
And during that time, you were Woman of the Year for Roadrunners 8 times.
Some of those had been in the 90s, actually. I don't remember which years they were,
well,
but
it
I
happened
was
so
still
many times.
running
But now,
at a fairly high
this is
level.
not age group based. This is
this was
the Woman of the Year, period.
So for most of that period, I was in my 40s, so that's why it was a real honor for me. As I mentioned, I did run the marathon, the New York City Marathon in 2001. That was the year I turned 40. And that was actually, I think, my best marathon ever. Not my PR, not my lifetime PR, but based on what I thought I was capable of on the day and what I achieved. You just have those races sometimes where you say, that's it, I couldn't have done any better. Everything that I could control, I executed really well. And the things that I couldn't control also worked in my favor. It was great weather, no bathroom issues, no
Everything
blisters.
clicked.
Yeah, everything
clicked.
It was
like magical.
It almost feels magical days like
when
that.
those rare moments.
Because as a marathoner, as a runner, you're so humbled by the times when things don't go well, when you either make a mistake that proves disastrous, a poor pacing decision or whatever it is, or you have things go wrong that you can't control.
That's right. That's right.
And you just know those
but
times
that wasn't it. This is the
always
almost,
a risk.
if you can just bottle it and put it in a lotion for it that people can buy,
sure.
you would be
You'd
a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, right. But for me, the marathon or running in general and the marathon in particular is all about those unknowns and knowing, not to be fatalistic, something's going to go wrong, but knowing that there are unknowns and that performing on the day is really asking questions and seeing what the answers are.
One of the other things you do at Roadrunners, because I've seen it, you and another colleague would go to Facebook and do these live Q&As.
Yes, we do. And it's, people write in or, send us questions and then we answer them live on Facebook. And we get all kinds of questions. It's a lot of times people have injuries and they want us to either diagnose them or tell them what to do. And we're not really able to do that. To diagnose an injury, first of all, you have to be trained and be an expert in the field.
Well, this is advice from one runner to another runner, as Dr. Hamner would always say.
It's like, someone says, oh, my foot hurts. Well, you want to ask them to take their shoe off, but they're, over there doing their thing. So it's impossible. You just try to offer general advice, which, usually amounts to, are you changing your form? Try to tell them to be cautious, but to also give themselves the chance. Don't pull the plug completely. Don't say, my marathon's over. Give yourself an opportunity. Scale back your expectations. That sort of general advice.
Yeah. One of the best advice I ever heard came from my premier guest on Gotta Run with Will. Mm-hmm. I soon will have my 200th. You're probably my 190th somewhere.
Oh, cool. That's great.
But my guest number one, and he's Dr. Dan Hamner, sat here, I think in this studio. I think we did it on the open studio. And he sat there and he said, never take as final the advice of a non-runner.
Oh, okay. That's good. Well, that advice will generally be, so what's the big deal? You just don't run. I've had my family, people have said things like that, when I've had to pull out of races, and it's hard.
Deal.
It's a big deal. And you're
It's
depressed.
in your DNA. And you said you have kids. Are they running too nowadays?
They run. It's not their primary exercise. They're not competitive runners. We have 3 sons. They're age 20, 18, and 12, and they all do some kind of running. The 12-year-old loves to do the road races, so he'll do anything up to 4 miles. He talks about doing a half marathon, but he's only 12. I think
12.
He's got to wait a bit. And then we have an 18-year-old who plays soccer, and he runs a lot. And then we have a 20-year-old who also plays club soccer, not super competitive.
Oh, okay.
And he's more of an elliptical guy, but he'll run.
Well, I know you guys are very into soccer because your Facebook, you go over to England to watch the matches.
Yeah, we're in mourning about the USA soccer team, unfortunately.
Trinidad and Tobago are high up in the ground.
Yeah, no, got to hand it to them.
Can't
blame anyone.
Now, as I mentioned, You do other things at Roadrunners, but the podcast. But you also are race buddies?
I do that once a year, and I also coach. We have a program, NYRR Group Training, which is group running classes, and I've been working with that. We started that in January of 2016. Tuesday and Thursday mornings and evenings. And then we have a program on Wednesdays in Astoria Park. So we're really trying to spread to all the boroughs and give people as many options as possible. I coach in Central Park, mostly in the mornings. I'm a morning runner.
It's an amazing career. You're editorial director, your mom, wife, and you run of the year, and you race buddy.
And it's all the glue
What
is
is it that you don't do?
No, the glue is running. It really
running.
is. I owe so many things, so many positive things in my life to running.
Many people say they don't have time to run. Here you are, super busy. How do you make the time?
I don't know. That question it's impossible for me to answer because really all of my adult life I've been a runner. I wasn't a runner through all of my childhood. I really only got into it late in high school when I was 17, 18 years old. And for me, once I started doing it and just felt so good, I loved it. It never was a chore, I've got to do this. It was always, I can't wait to do this. Yeah.
And in fact, you came in first last Sunday at the Mohawk Hudson?
Yeah, in my age group.
In your age group.
Yeah, it was called the Mohawk Hudson River Marathon.
And it was a hot
Albany.
day, wasn't it?
It was a terrible day. It was really a very humbling experience because I did a terrible split, 135, 148 first and second half.
13 minutes. Wow, that's a huge difference.
Not good.
But somehow you still
terrible.
managed to come in first in your age group.
Somehow, some miracle happened. I don't know what the other finishers ran. I mean, the weather was bad for everyone. So for me, weather is never an excuse because everyone's facing the same weather.
I guess you probably thinking back, you probably went out too fast.
Too fast, yeah. And it didn't feel that way. What I tell people, it won't feel like you're going too fast. So I need to listen to myself. Yes.
And follow it.
You need an A, B, and C, I always say. A is like on a perfect day, this is what I think I can do. And I've had that where I think, okay, I think I can run 241, and I run 241. It's like boom, boom, boom. But you always need a B and a C. A is like your dream. B is, sort of your mid-range average. If everything goes reasonably well, that's what I'll be able to do. And then C is like acceptable. For me, unless I'm incapable of finishing, through illness or just an injury that's causing me to change my form so much that it's going to do like permanent damage, I'll finish. So that's always an accomplishment.
Yes, that's true.
Kind of how I ended up feeling at the end of this race.
That's true. Well, we're coming to the end of this chat.
Of this chat.
So on that note, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I love this show.